Hi everyone, this is Dan, and this is jimshooter.com, the 198 storytelling lecture, part 2. I'm just going to get into this real quick because it's a pretty long article. But if you're confused, you can watch the previous video. I kind of explain what I'm doing here. But this is the second part by Jim Shooter. I posted this way back in 2011. All right, so you've got this concept that's built into our language and therefore built into our brains. That's why there is a definition of story. So why can't everybody just sit down and be a writer? Well, you can, just let yourself. There's a little more to it than that, which I'll tell you in a minute. But basically, I think for most of us, our problem is when we sit down to be a writer, we get this big capital W in front of that word, and we think we have to be Hemingway. Probably you'd all be better off if you would just stand there, tell the story to yourself in a mirror, or to someone small enough that you can force them to listen. So what is he getting to? This is actually something I've noticed in a lot of writer streams, from other channels. And that is, I feel people, I think, may both underestimate and overestimate writing at the same time. At least that's my opinion anyway. Again, I'm not a professional writer, so maybe I'm talking out my rear end, but I do feel sometimes people talk maybe a little too much about writing instead of just writing. We know what the basic unit is. Now let's expand that definition. What it was, when I say what it was, what I mean is who or what are we talking about, and what is their situation? What is their status quo? Where are they? What are they doing? What's normal? What's going on here if nothing else happened? What happened if something, what happened is something occurs to disrupt that normal status quo. I used to say a problem comes up, and sometimes I used to say a conflict. And then I said, no, it's not always that. Sometimes it's an opportunity. Something happens, though, to kind of rock the boat. So what effect does it have? What develops? What issues are raised? What is at stake? What conflict arises? What forces are our opposition, right? So he's kind of talking about essentially the status quo, and this is kind of the classic setting introduction sort of concept of classic dramatic structure. He's also going over rising action, conflict. He is right. It doesn't always necessarily have to have conflict for a story to exist. Sometimes it could be an opportunity. This is usually the case in like comedy sketches or comedy stories. Often not like, two idiots get a hold of a winning lotto ticket, right? And that would be an opportunity. And then you could play off that with a bunch of jokes or skits and stuff like that. Anyhow, that's all part of that second piece. What happened? I'll give you a memory device for this in a minute. How did it come out? Includes what decides the things that are at stake, the conflicts and so forth. How did that resolve? Once it does resolve, what is a new situation that's different from the original status quo? And if it isn't, you haven't gone anywhere, so it's not a story. Let me give you the expanded definition more simply. A story, and we're assuming characters here. I mean, it could be about a car or something, but for ease of discussing this, let's assume there's characters. A story is the following pieces. You introduce your characters, you establish the status quo setting, you introduce something which disrupts that status quo, a disruptive element, you develop conflicts, you build suspense, you reach a climax in which the forces in opposition, one wins, and then you have a resolution that is you explain the new status quo, denouement, conclusion, etc. Right? That's a pretty nice way of putting it. Again, though, he's only talking about conflicts, right? Like you just noted, you can have opportunities, right, and that would disrupt the status quo. I don't know if I like using the term status quo, but it works pretty all right here. Okay, how are you going to remember all that stuff? I'll tell you what, and it's all in a little poem called Little Miss Muffet. Oh boy, here we go. Little Miss Muffet sat on a tuffet, eating her curds and whey. Along came a spider who sat down beside her and scared poor Miss Muffet away. It's all there. It's a story. Introduce the character, Little Miss Muffet, establish the status quo, sat on a tuffet eating her curds and whey. She's having lunch, introduce the element which disrupts that. Along came a spider, builds suspense, sat down beside her. Now, look, this thing could be poisonous. You don't know. It might bite her. Scared, poor Miss Muffet. Wow, that's the moment where the situation you've created has reached that climax where something's going to happen now. Scared, poor Miss Muffet away. She gets away. If you can remember Little Miss Muffet, you can remember everything you need to know about the basic unit of entertainment, which is a story. Little Miss Muffet introduced the character, sat on a tough at eating her curds and whey, established the status quo. Along came a spider, introduced the disruptive element, sat down beside her, built suspense, scared poor Miss Muffet, climax, away, resolution. Now you know the basic building block of entertainment. Is that all you need? No. Little Miss Muffet is a story. It fits the basic building block. It is, however, a lousy story. You don't know anything about this girl, and you don't know anything about the spider. It gets old pretty quick, but we can make it better. Tomorrow, I'm going to show you how to make it better, and then we'll discuss some of the craft of being a writer. It's more than just knowing the building blocks. So for those of you who have been following the channel for a while, I go over a lot of comics, and I often will, especially in my older videos, I'll go over this. Okay, I always kind of look at the first 5 pages of a comic book or even a manga, because manga's the same way. Did they introduce the characters? Do I know where the setting is? Okay, what's the situation of the said character? What's the deal here? Okay, what is going to show up? All of a sudden, something like that that's going to disrupt that character's situation, whether it be the X-Men or the New Mutants, if we're talking about old classic comic books, whether it be Lieutenant Blueberry, if we're talking about Bond Disney, Judge Dredd, if we're talking about 2000 AD, Ichigo Kurosaki, Uzumaki Naruto, Luffy, or Monkey D. Luffy, if we're talking about manga, right? They all have to essentially follow this structure to have a full story. Now, they might stretch that story out across many issues, but most of them will do a good job of at least following a good structure. And it's not always the same structure every time. There might be little twists to it, but there will be structure. And there are a lot of stories that don't do this, especially in single issues, unfortunately. Something to kind of think about, right? In fact, what is, let me go back to this is the back in time, way back machine right here. I think I remember going over like probably my second video that I ever did like freaking moons ago. Let's see. Yeah. Oldest video. Yeah. I did this for Daredevil, The Man Without Fear. Here, Frank Miller follows this like rather perfectly, that entire time. Man, this was an old ass video. Oh man, 11 months. Holy crap. I'm almost at my anniversary. I didn't even realize that. Pretty cool. Anyway, guys, that's the video. Let me know what you think. I'll get to the third part tomorrow. And that'll be the final part right there. But yeah, if you've never gone through Jim Shooter's blog, very fascinating. A lot of great articles, especially if you're into American comic book history, especially the best time in American comic books, the 1980s. Anyhow, that's it. If you like this video, please hit the thumbs up, subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, hit the bell for notifications. If you got any comments about jimshooter.com, this article, or me covering it, leave it down below, and I will see you next time.